She opened the door thinking it was a package. It was, wrapped in navy cotton and breathing. A 3-month-old baby lay on her porch. No knock, no note in the mailbox, just a folded card inside the blanket. And a pair of eyes that didn't belong to her, but belonged to her husband. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply you stopped checking, stopped wondering, stopped questioning? Because you believed love meant never having to ask. Raina Lovell didn't expect betrayal, not because Jonah was perfect. He wasn't, but because she'd walked beside him when no one else did, through debt, through late nights, through fertility treatments, through grief. She never thought she'd be holding another woman's baby. In the nursery, Jonah once painted sky blue for their child, the one that never came. The night before the business trip felt ordinary, which made it worse. Raina had grilled salmon, Jonah's favorite. She burned the asparagus again. They both laughed. He reached across the counter, stealing one of her sweet potato fries. She swatted his hand. "You're going to a 5-star hotel tomorrow. Let me have my moment." Jonah grinned, lifting his wine glass. "I'll miss your burnt vegetables." They talked about her sister's upcoming wedding, about his pitch in Barcelona, about maybe trying again. "I don't know if I'm ready," Jonah said softly. Raina stirred her wine with a sigh. "I'll wait." They didn't argue. They didn't kiss long that night. He held her, whispered, "3 days. I'll be back before you miss me." She didn't know she'd miss everything they were before he came back. 2 days later, Raina slept in. She always took Fridays slow. She shuffled to the door in her robe, thinking it was the groceries she ordered. But it wasn't the delivery guy. It was a baby. She froze. The baby didn't cry, just blinked up at her, calm, soft, swaddled in a navy blanket with stitched letters that said, Lovell. Raina's fingers trembled as she leaned down. Inside the blanket, there was a folded card. She read it. "I can't do this. I heard what he promised you. But he promised me too. This is his daughter. Her name is Elia. She deserves more than what I can give. I'm sorry." No name, no number, just a 3-month-old baby. With Jonah's eyes, she could have screamed, could have dropped to her knees, could have called the police. Or Jonah. She didn't do any of that. She walked Elia inside, set the carrier on the couch, warmed a bottle, because she remembered how, from the adoption classes they never finished. She fed the baby slowly, then burped her on the chair Jonah once assembled with his bare hands, the one he called the lucky one, because one day they'd sit here with their child. Elia cooed against her shoulder. Raina didn't stop the tears. They fell without sound. At dawn, Raina dressed. She wrapped Elia in a fresh blanket, wrote a note to her neighbor, Brenda, who had 4 kids and the heart of a guardian angel. "Can you watch her for a few hours? I need to handle something. Please don't ask yet." She placed Elia in Brenda's arms without explaining, then got into her car. The roads were quiet, but her hands, they gripped the wheel like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Jonah's company, Lovell Freight and CO, had grown fast, from a garage to a glass building in downtown Atlanta. Raina had designed the first logo. She still remembered drawing it on a napkin during their 2nd year of marriage. She walked in. The receptionist blinked. "Mrs. Lovell, do you have an appointment?" "No, but I know his schedule." "Where's Jonah?" "He's in a strategy session." "With Mirel Dastan?" Raina's voice stayed steady. The receptionist looked away. "I need a name," Raina said. "That's all." The woman hesitated, then whispered, "Mirel." "Yes." Raina smiled, slow and bitter. "Thank you." She didn't wait for the meeting to end. She walked out. Sometimes silence hurts more than explosions. And right now, Raina didn't need noise. She needed to see his face when he saw hers. Jonah returned home on Sunday evening, 2 days earlier than expected. Raina didn't rush to the door. She didn't stand in the foyer waiting. She heard his keys jingle, the soft click of the lock. Then his voice, casual as ever. "Babe?" He stopped when he saw the living room lights off, kitchen dim. Only the nursery door was cracked open, a faint lullaby playing through the baby monitor. He stepped toward it, unsure. Inside, the bassinet sat in the corner, and in it Elias slept, arms up, mouth slightly parted, pink sock on one foot only. Jonah's steps faltered. Raina stood by the window, arms folded. She didn't look at him. He stared at the child, and froze. His face shifted. Confusion, then horror, then a guilt too raw to hide. He turned toward Raina, mouth parting. "Raina." She didn't move. "Who is she?" Her voice was steady. No shaking, no shouting. He didn't answer, just sank slowly into the armchair beside the crib, head in his hands. The silence stretched. Raina watched him without blinking, her breath shallow, her heart steady in a way that felt unnatural. When he finally spoke, it was barely a whisper. "She's mine." That she already knew. The part she didn't know, the part she needed to hear, was everything else. Jonah didn't look up. "I didn't plan it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You succeeded anyway." He nodded slowly. "I know." Raina walked over and pulled the blanket up over Elias' legs. The baby stirred, then settled. Raina stayed quiet. Jonah finally raised his head. His face looked aged, worn. It happened after Barcelona. After we lost the third baby. She didn't flinch. Didn't let him see the wound reopen. I was in Spain for the shipping summit. She was part of the hotel's PR team. She spoke French, Spanish, very smart. Raina looked at him sharply. "You're talking like you're impressed." He shook his head fast. "No, She was there. She asked if I was okay, and I wasn't. I told her everything, about you, about us. I drank. I wasn't thinking." He rubbed his face, ashamed. "I didn't see her again after that night, not for months. And then she emailed, said she was pregnant. I didn't believe her. She never asked for money, just said she was keeping the baby and didn't want to interfere. But she did," Raina said quietly. "She interfered by doing what I couldn't. She had your child." Jonah closed his eyes. "Don't say it like that. You're not. You've never been the problem." Raina's jaw clenched. "I was never enough either." He stood, reached for her hand. She stepped back. "I swear, I didn't know she'd leave the baby with you. I was blindsided. She knew where we lived, Jonah. She used our last name. I never told her." Raina turned toward him, voice cold. "She knew enough. That means you gave her enough." Jonah stared at her, helpless. "She left a note," Raina added. "It said you made promises to her too." She felt discarded, like trash. He looked crushed. "I didn't promise her anything. I didn't love her, but you slept with her while I was at home waiting for our life to heal. So whether you meant to or not, you gave her a reason to believe." Jonah dropped his head again. Raina glanced toward Elia. "She's beautiful. She didn't ask to be born. But you let her mother think she wasn't enough to be a part of this family. And now she's here, because you were careless with both of us." Jonah's voice cracked. "What do I do?" "You do nothing." "What?" Raina faced him fully. "You're not going to make this right in a week or a month. You're not going to clean this up with flowers or promises." She walked to the doorway. "I'm going to care for Elia, not because of you, but because she deserves a safe home." He blinked. You're keeping her?" "She's already here. I fed her, changed her, held her when she cried." "What did you do, Jonah?" He had no answer. Raina's eyes burned, but she didn't let them spill. "You'll stay in the guest room until I decide if there's anything left between us." That night, Raina sat in the nursery alone after putting Elia down. The lullaby kept playing. She sat in the same chair Jonah once painted white and rocked quietly in anticipation of a child they never had. Now there was a child, not hers by birth, but by fate, and her heart didn't know what to do with it. She heard Jonah's footsteps stop outside the door. He didn't come in, didn't knock, just stood there. She didn't move. He eventually walked away, and she finally cried. Not because she was broken, but because she wasn't anymore. She had survived something that should have killed her, and now she was still standing, with a child who hadn't asked to be a symbol of betrayal, but might end up being the start of something better. Have you ever faced a truth so painful, silence was your only answer? If you were Raina, would you have let the baby in? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories where quiet strength speaks louder than betrayal. Raina didn't ask Jonah to sleep in the guest room twice. He moved quietly that night, carrying a pillow under one arm, his phone in the other. No questions, no arguments. He knew better. Raina watched him pass the hallway with the weight of someone who had once been everything to her and now looked like a stranger in his own home. That morning she woke before Elia did. The house was still, the monitor silent. She made coffee, fed the baby, and sat with her in the nursery, brushing her fingers through soft dark curls. Jonah hadn't asked to hold her. Raina hadn't offered. By noon, she'd showered, dressed in her work blouse and slacks, and set Elia down with Brenda again. She thanked the woman with a quiet hug and promised she'd return soon. But Raina had one stop to make first. Jonah's office building was glass and steel, a far cry from the worn two-desk warehouse where they began. She remembered painting the old logo herself, sweeping it across the cracked garage wall, with navy blue strokes, while Jonah laughed beside her, covered in dust and coffee. She had stood by him through everything, and now she was standing in the lobby of a company she helped build, preparing to look into the face of the woman he threw it all away for. The receptionist looked up. Her smile faltered. "Mrs. Lovell." Raina raised a brow. "Is she here?" The woman hesitated. "She's in a meeting." "Who with?" She paused. Then quietly, "With legal. Internal HR." Raina's jaw tightened. "She's not being terminated, is she?" The receptionist looked away. "She left a baby at my door. Does the board know that?" Raina asked calmly. "They're handling it internally." Quietly. "It wasn't." The woman stopped herself. Raina nodded. "It never is." She stepped away from the counter and took a seat in the waiting area. She didn't ask permission. If they were handling Mirelle quietly, she wanted to know exactly how far they'd let it go. 10 minutes later, the elevator opened. Mirelle Dastan walked out, flanked by a man in a grey suit. Her head was lowered. She didn't look at Raina until she passed her. Their eyes locked for a second. Mirelle looked different from what Raina expected. Younger, softer, not glamorous. Just overwhelmed. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone who had cried alone recently. The man beside her kept speaking, but Mirelle stopped. "Raina." Her voice was unsure. "Quiet." Raina stood. "You know my name. I never wanted to hurt you," Mirelle said quickly. "I wasn't trying to. I never meant for this to be public. I wasn't." "You weren't prepared for what being someone's second choice feels like." Mirelle flinched. Raina took one step forward. "You had a child and left her at my door. I couldn't." "I thought he would," Jonah said. Raina's voice didn't rise. "He said a lot of things, to both of us. But you believed them." Mirelle's eyes welled. "I didn't want to compete with you. I didn't have anyone." "You had him." "No," Mirelle whispered. "I had his guilt, not his love." That stung more than Raina expected. Raina looked her over once more. No earrings, no lipstick, not even her badge lanyard. "I'm not the one you owe anything to," Raina said finally. "Your daughter is." Mirelle wiped her eyes. "Will you keep her?" "Yes." "Even though she's mine?" "She's not a possession," Raina answered. "She's a life. And you left her with no goodbye." "I wanted to do the right thing." "No," Raina cut in. "You wanted to escape the mess, so you made it my problem." Mirelle stood silently, then nodded. "I'm sorry." Raina didn't answer. She walked away. Back at home, Jonah was in the kitchen holding a mug, staring into it like it held answers. Raina walked in, took off her coat, and set her bag down. "She's not coming back," she said plainly. He looked up. I spoke to her. She didn't ask about you. Jonah set the mug down carefully. What did she say? She said you gave her guilt, not love. He sat back, eyes flickering. She left that baby on my porch because she thought I'd be strong enough to clean up your damage. Jonah didn't argue. She was right, Raina added. I was strong enough. But I shouldn't have had to be. That night, Elia cried more than usual. Jonah stood outside the nursery door again. This time, Raina opened it. She needs changing, she said, handing him a fresh diaper and wipes. Jonah looked startled. You want me to? She's your daughter. You don't get to be part-time anymore. He stepped in slowly. Unsure, Raina watched him kneel beside the bassinet, clumsily unwrapping the diaper. Elia kicked and squirmed. It took him longer than it should have, but he did it. Raina leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. For the first time in days, she didn't feel completely alone in that house. She wasn't sure if that meant anything yet, but it meant something. The next morning, Jonah was already in the kitchen when Raina walked in. He had made coffee, her usual way. Almond milk, no sugar. He didn't say anything when she entered, just slid the mug toward her gently. She took it, not because she forgave him, but because the silence between them didn't need another wound. Elia stirred in the baby seat near the counter. Her little fingers gripped the air. Jonah bent down and kissed the top of her head. Raina watched from the corner of her eye. It felt foreign that moment, like watching someone act out a scene they weren't cast in, but still, he was trying. Later that day, Raina sat on the edge of her bed, brushing out her hair. The room felt heavy with things unsaid. Jonah appeared at the doorway. She left the company. Raina didn't look up. I didn't ask, she said. She turned in a letter this morning. No confrontation, no plea. She already made hers, Raina replied. To me. Yesterday. Jonah leaned on the doorframe. Did she say anything else? She said you were never hers. Just her guilt. Jonah winced. I told her she owes her daughter more than a handoff at a stranger's door. He nodded slowly. I still don't understand why she didn't go to you, Raina added. Why me? Jonah looked down. Because she knew you'd do the right thing. She saw the kind of person you are. She knew she could leave Elia with you, and she'd be safe. Raina turned sharply. That's not a compliment. I didn't mean it to be one. I meant it as an apology. She let the brush fall into her lap. I don't want apologies, she said. Not unless they come with changed behavior. He stepped back, nodded. I understand. Over the next few days, a rhythm formed. Raina took care of Elia during the day, while managing calls from clients who hadn't yet abandoned her business. Jonah handled night feedings and rocked the baby when she got restless. He never asked to move back into their room. He never tried to explain further. And somehow, the stillness between them became manageable, not repaired, but livable. One night, Raina stood at the bedroom window, watching the street lamp flicker outside. She heard soft shuffling in the nursery, a creak of the rocking chair. She walked down the hall and peeked through the door. Jonah was rocking Elia against his chest, gently patting her back. The baby had fallen asleep, mouth slightly open, cheek pressed to his shirt. Jonah hummed a tune she didn't recognize. Raina didn't say anything, but her hand lingered on the doorframe longer than it needed to. On Saturday, Raina's sister, Yvel, stopped by. She hadn't seen the baby yet. Raina opened the door with Elia on her hip. Yvel's eyes went wide. Oh my God. Raina stepped aside. Yvel entered slowly, eyes scanning her sister's face. This her? She asked, barely above a whisper. Raina nodded. She has Jonah's nose, Yvel said, frowning. But she's beautiful. Raina handed Elia over. Yvel cradled her and exhaled. Does Mom know? Not yet. I don't want to explain it 10 times. You shouldn't have to explain it once. Raina sat on the couch, arms folded. She left the baby on my porch, Yvel. Just left her. People will say anything to make their mess someone else's cleanup, Yvel muttered, still rocking the baby gently. Jonah says she didn't want to interfere. She already did. Raina looked away. She said he gave her guilt, not love. That's generous, Yvel replied. Some women get less and still stay. Raina stayed quiet. Yvel handed the baby back, then grabbed her hand. You don't owe him healing just because he's the father. You can walk away. I don't know if I want to walk, Raina admitted, but I don't want to go in circles either. That night, Raina stood in the hallway again. Jonah came out of the nursery with tired eyes. She fell asleep early, he said softly. Raina nodded. He lingered. You ever think about starting over? He asked, not meeting her gaze. I think about finishing what I started, she said. But I also think about whether this version of us is supposed to continue. I'm trying, he said quietly. I see that, she replied. But you also tried to hide a part of your life from me. A big part. He nodded. I know. I'm not punishing you, she added. I'm protecting myself. Jonah swallowed. You're still wearing your ring. Raina looked down at her hand. She hadn't noticed. She slipped it off and placed it on the hallway table. I didn't take it off to hurt you, she said. I took it off to remember who I was before you. Jonah didn't speak. He just watched her walk away, ringless, with the baby monitor in her hand. And for the first time he realized he might never get her back. Jonah sat at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a cup of untouched coffee. It had gone cold, but he hadn't noticed. Across from him, Raina placed a small bowl of mashed pears on the tray in front of Elia. The baby's chubby fingers smeared some on her cheek before giggling to herself. Raina wiped her gently, humming. Jonah watched the scene like a man sitting outside a house he used to own. She likes sweet things, Raina said quietly, not looking up. I used to, he murmured, almost to himself. Raina didn't respond. She placed the spoon down and cleaned Elia's face again. She looks more like you every day, Jonah added. No, Raina said. She looks like the pieces of you I didn't know existed. Jonah looked down at the table. Later, while Elia napped, Raina stood at the hallway shelf organizing photo frames that had been turned down days ago. Their wedding picture, their first vacation in New Orleans. The ribbon from their first fertility clinic visit, still folded inside a frame that once held hope. Jonah leaned on the doorway. Can we talk? He asked. Raina didn't move. You always talk when I'm fixing something. He took a deep breath. Because you're always fixing what I break. She turned around slowly, arms crossed. Then talk. Jonah walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. The air between them tightened. I want to tell you what I didn't tell you that night, he began. You mean the night you admitted to having a child with someone else? Yes, but it wasn't just that. It was what came before it. Raina sat in the chair near the window. Then say it. Jonah rubbed his hands together. After we lost the last baby, I couldn't breathe near you, he said. You cried in silence. I cried when you weren't looking. I couldn't find a way to hold you without feeling like I was failing you. Raina blinked slowly, pain crawling into her chest. But she said nothing. I thought if I left you alone, you'd heal faster. I thought if I didn't say it out loud, maybe we wouldn't be broken. So, I buried it. She stared at him. And then I flew to Barcelona. I drank more than I should. I said too much to someone who knew how to listen without asking questions. She wasn't you, but she was there. And I made a mistake I couldn't undo. Jonah looked up, eyes glossy. It wasn't love, Raina. It wasn't even connection. It was fear and shame and weakness. You chose to let your shame sleep in someone else's bed, she replied. I didn't ask you to be perfect. I asked you to stay honest. Jonah nodded, his throat tight. I didn't know how to come home to you with that secret, and then it got bigger, and then it had eyes, and a name. He paused. I didn't know she'd come here. I didn't know she'd drop Elia at our door. Raina swallowed hard. But you knew she existed, and you still stood in my kitchen, eating salmon, talking about maybe trying again. He looked down, ashamed. I wasn't trying to replace our pain. I was just pretending it didn't exist. Raina stood slowly. You pretended so well you built an entirely different reality behind my back. I didn't love her. he repeated. Raina nodded. I know. He looked up, surprised. You don't think I've sat with that for hours, days? She said, I know you didn't love her. That's why it hurt worse. Because it meant I wasn't betrayed by a love triangle. I was betrayed by your escape route. Jonah closed his eyes. I was the one sitting through appointments, carrying disappointment, wearing clothes a size too big because of hormone shots, she said softly. And you ran. He wiped his face. I'm not saying this to destroy you, she continued. I'm saying it so you know, so you understand that you didn't just cheat on me, you stepped out on the life we built. You ran from the version of us that was still bleeding. I know, he whispered. And I hate myself for it. Raina leaned against the window frame. I hate that I still see pieces of the man I married in you, she said. I hate that I want to forgive you more than I want to forget you. Jonah looked up. Then what now? She shook her head. I don't know. But I'm not making any decisions until I can trust myself again. He nodded slowly. Raina stepped out of the room. That night, Jonah stood in the nursery holding Elia again. She was asleep, breathing gently against his shoulder. He whispered, I don't deserve her. Raina stood behind him, unseen, heard every word. She didn't interrupt. Because some truths needed to be said when no one else was listening, Jonah began to take more responsibility in quiet ways. He washed the bottles without being asked. He got up first when Elia cried at 3 a.m. He checked the thermostat in her room before bed and left a bottle warming just in case. Raina noticed, but she didn't acknowledge it. She had spent too long praising basic decency in the name of keeping peace. Now, she simply observed. One afternoon, she stepped outside to sit on the porch with Elia. The sun was soft. The baby giggled at a passing butterfly. Raina held her loosely, eyes on the quiet street ahead. Lucian's name popped up on her phone screen. She picked up. I read the article, he said. His voice was calm, familiar. I figured it wasn't your mess, but you were the one cleaning it. Raina exhaled. That's about right. You okay? No. Do you want to be? She looked down at Elia. I don't know what that looks like yet. Lucian paused. That's fair. Raina smiled faintly. You always know how to ask the question without pushing for the answer. That's the trick. People don't like being rushed out of their own pain. They sat in silence for a moment before he added, I'm in town for a few weeks if you need anything, legal or otherwise. Thank you, Lucian. You're not alone in this. When she ended the call, Jonah stepped out behind her. She knows your voice, he said, referring to Elia, now resting in Raina's lap. I know, she replied. She calms down faster with you. She should. I didn't run from her. Jonah sat on the opposite end of the porch. I had lunch with my mother today, he said. Raina tilted her head, mildly surprised. She asked where the ring went. Raina stayed quiet. I told her I broke something. She spent her life praying I wouldn't. He glanced at her. I didn't tell her about Mirelle. I just told her about the baby. And that you didn't leave. She'll think I'm weak, Raina said. Jonah shook his head. She thinks you're the only thing worth saving. That night, they sat across the living room with a documentary playing. Not talking, not comfortable, but not strangers. Jonah looked over suddenly. If you had done what I did, I don't know if I could have stayed. Raina stared at him. Then understand the weight I carry, she said. He nodded. I do now. She stood. Don't ruin it again. The next morning, Raina woke to the sound of Elia's soft babbling. She entered the nursery and found Jonah already there. He had changed her, dressed her, and was now holding her against his chest while reading a children's book out loud. He stopped when Raina walked in. I wanted you to sleep in, he said, almost nervously. She nodded once. You missed a sock, she said gently. Jonah laughed awkwardly and fixed it. They fell into this quiet rhythm. Days moved slow, but they moved. Raina didn't wear her ring. Jonah didn't ask about it again. One evening, she brought down a box from the attic. It had Elia's name written on the top in neat black marker. Inside, baby clothes, the first onesie, a framed copy of the Note Mirel, left, a new baby book she hadn't had the strength to write in yet. Jonah walked in, saw the box, and sat beside her. Her first memory should be love, Raina said. Not shame. She'll have love, he promised. From me, she clarified. He paused. And from me, if you allow it. She closed the box lid. I'm not keeping you away. I'm watching what you do with the chance I gave. The next weekend, Raina visited her sister again. She brought Elia. Jonah stayed back, finishing up paperwork in the home office. At Yvelle's house, Raina watched her niece and nephew play, while Elia slept peacefully in a travel crib. Yvelle leaned close. So, you think you'll stay with him? Raina took a breath. I don't know, but you let him hold her, because he's her father, and because she deserves the full truth of where she came from, even if it hurts. And what about what you deserve? Raina met her sister's gaze. I'm figuring that out now. Yvelle smiled, reaching across the table. When you do, don't settle out of habit. Settle because your peace is safe. Back home, Raina returned to find the house quiet. Jonah had left her a note on the table. Elia's bottles are in the fridge. I'm out running errands. J. Underneath it was something else. A picture frame. Inside it, the first sonogram they ever took, tucked behind a recent photo of Elia sleeping with her fist curled under her chin. 2 pieces of their past, stacked quietly. She didn't cry, but she sat down and looked at it for a long, long time. There was a difference between staying and returning. Raina hadn't returned to Jonah. She was simply still in the house, not because she didn't have somewhere else to go, but because leaving with Elia would have felt like another abandonment. And the child had already been passed between too many hands. Jonah never pushed her to define where they stood. He moved around the house with deliberate space, knocked before entering any room she was in, asked before touching anything that belonged to her. Even his voice was quieter now, less sure, less familiar. He was walking through the wreckage of the life he broke, barefoot, careful, not to step on anything sharp that might remind her of what he'd done. One morning, Raina found him standing in the nursery holding Elia's bottle. She prefers it warmer than this, he murmured, frowning at the temperature. She's not picky. But yes, a little warmer. He adjusted the bottle, then gently placed it in her small mouth. Elia sucked softly, eyes closing. I want to learn everything, Jonah said. You're learning. I want to do it right. Then don't act like you're making up for something. Just be here. He nodded. Later that day, Raina sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. Jonah entered, wiping his hands on a towel. What's that? Terms, she said plainly. He stopped. Terms? You said you wanted to stay, raise her, try to fix things. I do. Then these are the rules. Jonah pulled out a chair, cautiously. Okay. She read from the notebook, calm and clear. First, no sleeping in the same room. Until I ask otherwise. He nodded. Second, no talking about the past unless I bring it up. Understood. Third, we go to therapy. Not to fix what we had, to understand what was real and what wasn't. Jonah looked surprised, but he nodded again. And lastly, she said, pausing, no decisions about us until Elia turns 1. Jonah blinked. That's almost 8 months from now. Yes. His jaw tightened. So, I'm in limbo? Raina leaned forward. I was in limbo for 6 years, between surgeries, between test results, between hope and loss. If you want this family, you can learn to wait. He lowered his gaze. You're right. I'm not asking you to chase me, she said. I'm asking you to stand still and mean it. He pressed his palms together. I will. In the weeks that followed, their home didn't feel like a home. It felt like a holding place, like a space between what was and what could be. But Elia grew. She smiled more, slept longer, learned how to sit without falling over. Raina caught herself laughing again. Small things. Jonah watched it all, quietly present. He never raised his voice. He never questioned her silence. He simply kept showing up. One afternoon, Raina received a letter from a former client. It wasn't kind. The woman accused her of being dishonest, hiding scandal, misleading clients by presenting a perfect image of marriage while her own was morally compromised. Raina folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer, and didn't mention it. Until later that evening, when Jonah walked in and found her staring at the fireplace, unreadable. What happened? She handed him the letter. He read it once. His expression darkened. "I'll handle it," he said. "No." "But she slandered you." Raina looked at him. "Let it sting. Let me sit in it for a minute." "Why?" "Because I've spent so long dodging pain, pretending things are fine. I don't want to numb it anymore. I want to feel what I need to feel, then move on clean." Jonah exhaled. "You're stronger than me." "No," she said. "I've just had to be." Later that night, she sat on the floor with Elia. The baby clapped her hands and fell forward into her lap. Jonah watched from the kitchen doorway. "She said your name this morning," he said. Raina looked up. "Really?" He smiled. "I said, 'Where's Mama?' And she turned toward your office." Raina's lips pressed together. "It's just a sound for now. Maybe. But it made me realize something." "What's that?" "She already knows who shows up." Raina didn't expect the knock at her office door. She'd left the front porch light off. The baby was asleep. Jonah had gone to bed early. The knock came again, soft but steady. She opened the door to find a woman standing there. Late 40s, designer coat, tight smile. "Mrs. Lovell?" "Yes? I'm with Larkin Merrin Events. You reached out 2 months ago. We're working the Laramie Estate wedding." Raina's posture stiffened. "I remember. You said the client had gone with another agency." "She had." "Until she didn't." Raina crossed her arms. The woman's smile thinned. "Apparently, the bride saw your recent baby photo on social media. She loved the bassinet details in the background, said it looked authentic." Raina didn't flinch. "So now I'm on brand." The woman shrugged. "Scandal sells, and you've become quietly marketable. People like pain they can dress up." Raina looked over her shoulder at the soft glow of the nursery monitor on her desk. "Tell the client I'm unavailable," she said. "You're declining?" "I'm not a trend," she said calmly. "And I don't design for people who shop for tragedy." The woman blinked, then turned and walked down the steps. Raina closed the door gently behind her. The next morning, she was up early. Elia babbled from her crib. Jonah walked in to change her. He smiled when he saw Raina already there. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." Jonah leaned over. "Want me to handle breakfast?" "Yes." He lifted Elia and left. Raina looked out the window. The street was quiet. Her phone was quiet. But her thoughts weren't. That afternoon, she met Lucian for coffee. He arrived in his usual blazer and rolled sleeves. "How's the quiet war at home?" he asked lightly. Raina smirked. "Still being fought with baby wipes and eye contact." He smiled. "Sounds exhausting." "It's better than being numb." Lucian grew serious. "You want to sue for defamation over that client letter?" "No, because you have grounds. I don't want to be defined by what I respond to. I want to be defined by what I build next." Lucian nodded, approving. "You've always known how to rebuild." Raina looked down. "Sometimes I wish someone else would do the rebuilding for once." He stirred his tea. "You mean Jonah?" "I mean anyone. I'm tired of being the one who stays calm while everything burns." Lucian tapped the table gently. "Then stop. Let it burn if it has to." Raina smiled faintly. "You always say things that make sense 2 hours later. Delayed impact. Like a good court case." When she got home, Jonah was on the floor with Elia, trying to mimic her crawling. He looked ridiculous. The baby squealed with joy. Raina paused at the hallway, watching. He didn't see her. He was laughing. Real laughter. She hadn't heard that sound from him in a long time. Maybe it had taken losing everything to remember how to enjoy something small. That night, after Elia went to sleep, Raina stood by the kitchen sink. Jonah stepped in behind her, quiet. "I heard from HR today," he said. Oh, they're asking if I want to take paternity leave, retroactive, 8 weeks. She turned to face him. Do you? He hesitated. I didn't earn it. Then take it and earn it now. He nodded. I want to be here for all of it. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it for you. I'm saying it for her. Raina looked away. Good. Later, as she sat at her desk organizing vendor receipts, she caught sight of the framed photo Jonah had left, the one with the sonogram and Elia's sleeping face. She picked it up, turned it in her hand, then gently set it back down. Not everything needed to be forgiven at once. Some things just needed to be seen clearly. Raina didn't expect to be the headline. She wasn't a celebrity. She didn't chase cameras or post glossy photo shoots. Her work spoke quietly. Word-of-mouth weddings, discreet elite clientele, no mess. But one photo changed that. A friend of Mirel's had posted it. Elia, asleep in the crook of Raina's arm. No caption, just hashtags. CEO's baby other woman wife or mother. The tabloids did the rest. It hit on a Wednesday. Raina opened her laptop to review design proofs for a May wedding. The browser auto-loaded her homepage. A headline stared back at her. Atlanta CEO's wife raises baby from affair. Sources say mistress vanished. She didn't click it. She didn't need to. By noon, her business phone buzzed non-stop. 2 clients cancelled. 3 paused their deposits. One event planner asked if she'd be emotionally stable enough to continue leading. Raina sat still. No panic, no rage, just that numb hum behind her ribs. The same feeling she'd had after her second miscarriage. Not grief, just wait. Yvel came over that evening, furious. You're going to let this slide? She snapped, phone in hand. They're dragging your name like you're the one who did something wrong. I know. They're calling you the babysitter, saying you're desperate to keep your man. Raina exhaled slowly. Let them. You used to be fiery. No, Raina said softly. I used to waste matches on people who never stood in the cold for me. Yvel threw her hands up. You're too calm. I'm not calm. I'm tired. That night, Raina sat on the back porch. Jonah opened the door slowly. Have you seen it? She asked without turning. He stepped out beside her. Yes. I used to be private. Now I'm a search term. Jonah looked out at the dark street. I should have done more to protect you. You should have never made me the one who had to look strong. Jonah's jaw tightened. If I could take it back. But you can't. He looked down. I know. They sat in silence. Do you want me to say something publicly? He asked. No. You'll make it worse. Then what should I do? Let them talk, she whispered. And let me show them who I am without needing to scream it. The next morning, she got dressed. Not for court, not for drama, for business. Black trousers, cream blouse, hair tied low, poised. Jonah stepped out of the nursery, Elia in his arms. You're going out? Yes. Where? To remind them, I'm not the story. I'm the standard. She met Lucian at a quiet downtown cafe. He already had a folder waiting. 3 cease and desist letters ready, he said. Your name's being dragged across 6 sites. 2 of them have contact forms. I'm not suing yet, Raina replied. But you will, if they don't back off. Lucian smiled. You never play first, but you finish. Raina sipped her tea. I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to be left alone to raise a child that isn't even mine. Lucian studied her. She is now. Raina looked away. I didn't ask for this. No, but you didn't run either. Back home, she found a package on the porch. No return address. She opened it carefully. Inside, a tabloid magazine, folded to a page. A circle drawn in red ink around a line. Sources say the wife was unable to carry a child, making the husband's affair more understandable. No signature. Jonah found her standing still, holding the page. He took one look and ripped it in half. I'll find who sent it. No, Raina said. You'll stay here and feed your daughter. She's being used to attack you, and she's still sleeping through the night. That's what matters right now." That evening, Raina pulled out her old wedding planning ledger. She flipped to the first client she ever had, a courthouse elopement. She remembered hand-making the bouquet in her kitchen, $23 of silk flowers and pins. She smiled for the first time all day. Then she picked up her pen and wrote a name down. Not a client, a goal, something of her own. Because if the world was going to call her names, she'd build something they couldn't touch. Jonah stood at the front door, keys in hand, when Raina came downstairs in her trench coat. It was drizzling outside. Grey sky. Wind, just cold enough to cut through clothing. He opened the door for her without saying a word. She stepped out, turned. "You don't have to wait up. I will." She paused. "Elia's wipes are on the bottom shelf. Pajamas already laid out. I've got her," he said. Raina nodded, then got into the car waiting outside. The restaurant was quiet, high-end, but not flashy. Lucien chose it for its privacy, not its menu. He stood when Raina arrived, taking her coat, guiding her to the booth. Always the gentleman, never theatrical. "I ordered your tea already," he said. She smiled faintly. "You always remember the details. You're not the kind of woman people forget," he replied, sitting across from her. They didn't talk about the tabloids, not right away. Instead, Lucien handed her a portfolio. "Here's what we're proposing." Raina opened it. Inside, a clean rebranding proposal for her event company. New logo, revised positioning, a shift from luxury romantic events to legacy lifestyle productions. It was smart, precise. "I like the tone," she said. "It doesn't hide the past, but it doesn't make it a campaign either." Lucien leaned forward. "The press is going to twist this as long as you let it hang. But if you move first, with purpose, they'll be too slow to catch you." Raina closed the folder. "You've always been 10 steps ahead, only with people I care about." She looked at him, held his gaze. "I'm not yours to fix, Lucien." "I know," he said. "I'm not here to fix. I'm here to stand beside." Her throat tightened, but she held it together. Back at home, Jonah rocked Elia in the nursery. She was fussier tonight. Maybe she felt the tension, the shift in the house. Babies sensed things. He whispered stories to her, made up names, places, the kind of life she could grow into, one where she wasn't a symbol of scandal, but a child raised in warmth, even if the warmth wasn't always romantic. When she finally dozed off, he stayed in the chair, arms around her. Raina returned around midnight. She walked in, placed her keys down softly, and peeked into the nursery. Jonah was asleep in the chair, head tilted back. Elia slept on his chest. It wasn't a perfect picture, but it was real. She quietly took a photo, then immediately locked the screen, not for sharing, just to remember that even broken people could make moments worth keeping. The next morning, she woke up to an email. Subject, contract void request, client 1040. First, it was from a bride scheduled for October. Raina clicked the thread open. "Hi, Raina. I've decided to terminate our agreement due to recent press coverage. I understand this may seem unfair, but I need my wedding to feel untouched by controversy. I'll forward the formal cancellation through my lawyer, RM." Raina read it twice, then a third time, not because she didn't understand, but because it still shocked her how easily people turned. She forwarded the message to Lucien, added only one line. That afternoon, she sat in her home office, phone ringing less than usual. She heard Jonah approach the door but didn't look up. He knocked gently. "You busy?" "Yes," she replied. "But you can come in." He entered holding a manila folder. "I went through the HR files, found Mirel's non-disclosure agreement." Raina raised a brow. "I'm not trying to dig," he added. "But if she ever leaks anything about the company or about you, you'll have leverage." She took the file. "Why bring this to me?" "Because you deserve to feel like you have power in this. Not just forgiveness to hand out." She nodded once. "Thank you." Jonah stood there a moment longer, then asked, Did I ever tell you why I named the company Lovell Freight? You said it was because of legacy. I lied. I named it after you. Your last name before you took mine. Raina blinked. I didn't think I deserved the name attached to a dream, but you built half of it with me, and even after all this, I still think you're the backbone. She said nothing. He didn't expect her to. He simply left the room. Later that evening, Brenda stopped by to drop off a borrowed car seat. She glanced at Elia, then at Raina. She's gotten bigger. She's growing, Raina said. She looks safe, happy. She is. Brenda hesitated, then reached into her purse. I shouldn't be giving this to you, but I think you deserve to see it. It was a message printout, Mirel's social media post, now deleted. A soft photo of Elia as a newborn, eyes barely open. She was always better off with someone stronger than me. I know what I did. I hope one day she understands why I let her go. Raina stared at the screen, then passed it back. Keep it. You're not angry? No. Why not? Because she gave me the one thing Jonah couldn't give me without breaking me. Brenda didn't understand, but she didn't ask. That night, Raina made dinner. Nothing fancy. Roasted chicken, steamed carrots, couscous. Jonah came downstairs surprised. She didn't set extra napkins, didn't light candles, but she set a place for him. He sat quietly. They ate in silence. Elia sat between them in her bouncer, making wet chewing sounds and throwing her spoon. Raina chuckled. She's going to be a menace when she starts walking. She's already ruling the house, Jonah added. Their eyes met briefly. A flicker of something passed between them. Not romance, not tension, understanding. After dinner, as Raina cleaned up, Jonah stood behind her. I meant what I said. About the name. She rinsed a dish. I know, and I'll mean it again if you ever want it back. She turned. I'm not making promises, he said. I'm just leaving the door open. To us. To whatever version we might become. She looked at him. Then leave the door open quietly. Don't stand in the doorway. He nodded. Understood. That night, Raina updated her business website. She changed the About section, removed the old brand mission, added one line instead. Grace isn't weakness, it's control with boundaries. Then she closed the laptop, checked the baby monitor, and for the first time in weeks, slept through the night. When your name is dragged, do you defend it or let your truth speak louder? Tell us in the comments, and if you believe grace with boundaries is strength, not weakness, like, share, and subscribe for more stories where quiet dignity wins. Lucian arrived with 2 coffees and a folder of new contracts. He didn't knock. He texted, I'm outside. You up for 10 minutes of peace and a business rescue plan? Raina opened the door in leggings and a sweatshirt. Elia sat on her hip, chewing a toy block. You brought bribes, Raina noted, eyeing the coffee cup. I did, he said, stepping inside. Caffeine and cash flow strategy. She motioned toward the dining table. That's the new war room. He sat, opening the folder. 3 new leads, private events, no media. 1 wants full planning, 2 want consulting. Raina raised a brow. Since when do people want their weddings quiet? Lucian smirked. Since Loud turned them into hashtags. You've become the face of what comes after the storm. They trust you to protect their day. Raina set Elia in her playpen and took a sip. I'm not a brand, no. You're a boundary, Lucian said, and people crave that now. She sat across from him. You always find the spin. I find the truth. And I package it well. Elia squealed, tossing a plush elephant over the side of the playpen. Lucian stood, picked it up, and handed it back without missing a beat. Raina watched him. You always move like you've done this before. Lucian smiled. Group home. 3 younger kids. You learn to dodge bottles and catch teddy bears mid-air. Raina tilted her head. You don't talk about that much. Not many people ask. I should have asked sooner. You were busy surviving. Raina looked down. Still am. Lucian leaned forward. That's why I'm here. The conversation shifted to strategy. Lucian showed her a plan for restructuring her rates, focusing on bespoke legacy ceremonies, not just weddings, events that marked turning points, divorce parties, legacy unveilings, quiet rebirths. "You don't need to fight for attention anymore," he said. "You need to own what you've lived through. I'm not ready to make money from my pain." "You're not. You're making meaning out of it." Raina folded her arms. "That's a fine line." Lucian smiled. "So is motherhood. You seem to be walking that one just fine." Jonah arrived home earlier than expected. He entered through the side door and froze when he saw Lucian at the table. Raina stood to meet him halfway. "We were going over contracts." "I see that." Lucian offered a polite nod. Jonah nodded stiffly. Lucian, tension, wrapped the room like static. Raina broke it. "We're done for today anyway." Lucian gathered his things, calm as ever. "I'll send the final draft tonight." He turned to Raina. "Thank you for the coffee." She walked him to the door. Before he stepped out, he looked back once. "You're doing more than surviving, Raina." She smiled faintly. "I'm trying." He touched the edge of her hand with 2 fingers. Not a touch, a signal. Then he was gone. Jonah waited in the hallway. "You didn't tell me he was coming," he said. "You didn't ask." Jonah ran a hand through his hair. "He's here a lot. He's helping. I know what he's doing. I'm still here too." Raina folded her arms. "Being here doesn't earn you ownership of my space. I'm not asking for ownership." "Then don't compete. This isn't a race." Lucian didn't break anything. "He's not cleaning up your mess. He's helping me build something I can own without you." Jonah stepped back. "I'm not trying to fight him," he said quietly. "I'm trying not to lose you." "Then don't watch the door. Watch your steps." That night, Raina couldn't sleep. She stood in the nursery doorway, watching Elia roll from side to side in her crib, mumbling baby sounds. Jonah walked up behind her, barefoot. "I think about her future all the time," he said. "Good. Do you think I deserve to be part of it?" Raina answered without turning. "I think you've shown up every day since she arrived." "That means something." Jonah hesitated. "What does it mean for us?" Raina finally turned to him. "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring out if I want the man you're becoming, or if I'm just grateful he's finally here." Jonah took that in. He didn't respond, because she wasn't done speaking. "And I don't owe you that answer yet." The silence in the house had shifted. It wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't filled with tension or walking on eggshells. It was the kind of silence that comes when things settle, not because they've healed, but because the bleeding had stopped. Raina folded laundry on the bed, while Elia babbled on the rug. On top of the pile was one of Jonah's button-down shirts. She hesitated, folded it anyway. He walked in as she finished stacking the last towel. "Heading to the office?" she asked. "No," he said. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous." He smiled faintly, then sat. "I want to move out for a while." Raina looked up. "I don't want you to think I'm walking away," he said quickly. "But I've been showing up here out of guilt and trying to earn my place back. And that's not the kind of presence Elia needs." Raina leaned on the dresser. "So you're choosing space?" "I'm choosing clarity. I think we both need to know who we are apart before we decide if there's still an us." She didn't respond right away. Finally, she said, "That's fair." Jonah nodded. "I'll still be here every morning. For Elia. Nothing changes there. And if she cries at night, I'll come back. No matter what time it is." She nodded again. He stood. "Thank you for not making this harder than it already is." Raina met his eyes. "I stopped fighting what's broken. I only fix what wants to be whole." That weekend, Jonah packed a few things. Not all. Just enough. He kissed Elia's cheek and whispered, "See you tomorrow." She giggled and reached for his face. He held it for a moment, longer than usual, then left. Raina stood at the window until his car disappeared. The next morning, the house felt unfamiliar. She walked through the rooms slowly, not searching, just noticing. How the quiet was no longer threatening. How Elia's laughter still filled the air. How her own breath didn't feel tight in her chest. She sat on the couch with her coffee, Elia asleep beside her, and finally admitted. What she'd buried under planning and survival, she didn't miss Jonah, not in the way she feared she might. That afternoon, Lucian stopped by with a new contract. I told them you'd review it personally, no assistance. Raina flipped through the pages. You trust my brain more than most men trust my face. Lucian chuckled. That's because your brain is terrifyingly efficient. She looked up. What's the real reason you're here? He hesitated, then said, Jonah told me he's moved out. She didn't act surprised. He needs space. And you? I need peace. Lucian nodded. You always did. Even when you wouldn't admit it. She closed the contract. You think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're finally choosing you. That evening, Raina bathed Elia alone. There was no backup towel handed over the door. No Jonah nearby offering to dry her off. She handled it. Elia giggled and kicked, splashing bubbles everywhere. Raina wrapped her in the elephant-hooded towel and whispered, You'll never feel like someone's mistake. I promise. She carried her into the nursery, humming softly. And, for the first time, she didn't feel like she was doing it all alone. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Jonah returned the next morning just after sunrise. He brought warm bottles, fresh groceries, and a look in his eyes Raina hadn't seen before. Not guilt, not apology, just presence. I stocked the fridge, he said, setting the bags on the counter. Didn't want you running out of oat milk again. Raina looked up from the stove. Thanks. Elia, strapped to her seat, squealed at the sound of his voice. He crouched, kissed her forehead. Hi, baby girl. She responded with a drooly smile. They moved through the kitchen like distant roommates. Raina plated breakfast. Jonah poured juice. Not awkward, not warm, just functional. But when he sat down and bowed his head before eating, Raina paused. He'd never been the type. You praying? She asked, genuinely surprised. Jonah nodded. Trying. For what? For peace, for strength, for the ability to fix only what I broke, nothing else. She blinked slowly, then went back to her plate. He didn't ask for more. That afternoon, Raina took Elia to the new venue Lucian had signed under her name. It still smelled of fresh paint and unstirred air. She walked the wide floors with her daughter in one arm and her design binder in the other. This is where we start again, she whispered. Elia reached out and patted the edge of the counter. Raina smiled. That's right. Touch the future, baby. Lucian arrived 20 minutes later with a clipboard and soft eyes. You look like you belong here, he said. I didn't think I'd ever belong anywhere again, she replied. He paused, then offered, We could do a soft launch in spring. Build buzz, test capacity. Raina nodded. Let's move slow. The right kind of clients will find us. Lucian smiled. They already are. Back home, Jonah stood in the driveway when Raina pulled in. She got out with Elia, and he took the baby's bag without asking. She okay? He asked. Better than both of us, she said, locking the car. He glanced down. You're working on the venue? Yes. You're making something beautiful again. I never stopped, she replied. Even when everything was ugly. Jonah hesitated. Raina. She turned to him. I miss being someone you believed in. She looked him in the eye. I don't stop believing in people. I stop letting them stay close when they abuse the belief. He nodded. Fair. That night, she found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. You made something whole out of what should have broken you. Don't forget that. She didn't need a name. She folded it once, placed it in Elia's memory box and whispered, The woman who gave you life saw something in me. I don't know if that's grace or weight, but I'll carry it until you're old enough to ask. 3 days later, Lucian came by with a folded blanket in his arms. What's that? Raina asked. It was my sister's. From foster care. I've kept it for years. I think Elia deserves to have something from another survivor. Raina took the blanket. It was simple, faded pink, hand-sewn edges. She didn't cry, but her fingers tightened around the fabric. "Thank you," she whispered. Lucien leaned in. "You're allowed to be loved again, Raina. I don't know if I'm ready. I'll wait." That night, after Elia fell asleep, Raina stepped outside to the porch. Jonah sat on the steps, elbows on knees. He didn't speak when she joined him. She handed him a blanket. "It's cold tonight," she said. He took it. They sat in silence for several minutes. Then she said, "You're not the man I married anymore. I know, but that's not entirely a bad thing." He turned to her, hopeful. She held up a hand. "It's not a promise, it's a possibility." He nodded. "I'm not rushing anything," he said. "I just want to be a man who doesn't scare the idea of forgiveness away." She looked out at the stars. "Then stop rehearsing redemption and live it." He exhaled. "I'm trying." She didn't smile, but she didn't move either. Sometimes staying was a step. It had been 5 days since Jonah moved out. He still came every morning, brought warm bottles, sat with Elia on the rug while Raina got ready. He didn't linger. He didn't ask questions. He didn't press. He just showed up, then left, and slowly, Raina noticed the strangest thing of all. She didn't miss him. She didn't ache, didn't watch the door after he left, didn't feel the tug of what used to be. What she felt was relief. On a Sunday morning, Raina stood in front of her mirror, buttoning her blouse. Elia babbled from the crib behind her. "You're going to spend the afternoon with Brenda today," Raina said softly. "Mama has a meeting." Elia clapped, as if understanding perfectly. Raina smiled. "I love that you don't need me to smile. You just do it." There was a knock on the bedroom door. "Jonah, ready to drop her off?" he asked. "Almost." He stepped inside. "Can I take her today?" Raina turned, surprised. "I'd like to," he said. "I'll stay with her. You don't have to do drop-off or pick-up. I want to be more than scheduled support." She studied him. "You're asking to take care of her without me checking in?" "I am, and if she gets fussy, I'll hold her until she's not." Raina watched him closely, then nodded. "Okay." She handed Elia over, gave clear instructions, and kissed her daughter's cheek. Jonah lifted the diaper bag and whispered, "We'll be back by 4. Raina stood by the window, watching them leave, and when the door closed, she didn't collapse. She turned back to her desk and smiled. Later that day, Raina sat at a round table inside her new venue. 2 prospective clients across from her, a mature couple, mid-50 seconds, planning a second wedding, small guest list, intimate gathering. "We've heard of you," the woman said. "We also read everything online." Raina didn't flinch. "And you're still here?" The man chuckled. "Because of it. Anyone who can carry that much heat and still hold a baby on one hip while filing paperwork is someone we want running our ceremony." Raina smiled. "Then you're in the right place." They shook hands. By the end of the hour, the deposit was confirmed. Raina locked the door after they left and stood in the center of the empty space. The light from the high windows poured in slowly, warming her shoulders, and she said it out loud. "Just once, I can do this." At 4:01 p.m., Jonah returned. Elia was asleep on his shoulder. Raina took her gently and laid her in the bassinet. "She didn't cry once," Jonah whispered. "She never does when she's with someone calm." He smiled. "Then maybe I'm finally learning." Raina looked over at him. "You're trying," she said. "That's more than I expected a month ago." Jonah stood in the doorway like he wanted to say more. Instead, he just said, "Call me if she wakes up and wants me." "I will." He left without another word. That evening, Raina picked up her phone. Lucien had sent a message. "How'd the meeting go?" She typed, closed the contract. "You were right." He responded instantly. "You always close. I just stand nearby." She smiled, then sent one more message. "I'm not ready to open any new doors emotionally, but I notice who knocks with respect." Lucian responded with nothing but a checkmark emoji. She laughed quietly to herself. Raina didn't tell anyone, but that night she booked a hotel room. Not to run away, not to hide, but to rest. Real rest. Jonah stayed with Elia. He didn't ask questions, just nodded when Raina said, "I need a night to breathe." She checked into a quiet downtown boutique hotel. No luxury spa, no five-star suite, just clean sheets, no baby monitor, no door creaking open at 3 a.m., and no man trying to be forgiven without earning it. She ordered room service, ate in bed, watched a terrible romantic comedy and turned it off halfway. Not because it was bad, but because she didn't need fiction to imagine being seen anymore. Not when she was learning to see herself. By 7 the next morning, she was back at her front door. Jonah opened it with Elia on his hip. She had 2 bottles, slept 6 hours, 1 diaper blowout, but I handled it. Raina stepped inside, kissed Elia's cheek. "You handled it well?" Jonah smiled. "I didn't panic." "Then you're learning." Jonah glanced at her. "You look rested." "I am." She stepped past him, heading to her room to change. Jonah didn't follow. That afternoon, she met Lucian for a walk through the new venue. He brought coffee and a structural proposal. "Thinking about adding a rooftop extension," he said. "Ceremonies under string lights. Could raise your rate by 20%. Raina ran her fingers along the railing. "I like it." They stood in the open space, wind moving quietly around them. Lucian looked over. "You're different." "How?" "Calmer, clearer. You used to brace for pain. Now you move around it." Raina smiled. "Because I know it can't swallow me anymore." He studied her face. "You're not just surviving. You're rising." Raina looked away. "I still have to co-parent with someone who betrayed me, and you're doing it with boundaries and grace. Most people crumble just trying to decide." She turned back to him. "You always make the process sound noble." "Not noble," he said. "Necessary." That evening, Raina sat on her back porch. Elia slept inside. Jonah stood by the kitchen sink, washing bottles. Raina didn't ask him to. He just did it now. She watched his reflection through the glass. There was no anger, but no pull either. It was like watching someone she used to know learn how to be someone else. He joined her after a while. "You want me to move her to the crib?" "She's fine for now." He sat across from her. The air was still, cool. He broke the silence. "Are we ever going to talk about what this is?" Raina looked at him. "What is this?" He shrugged. "We're in each other's lives, raising a child, having dinners, watching each other breathe. That doesn't mean we're us." "I know." "Then don't mistake civility for reunion." Jonah nodded. "But if I told you I'd wait, would you believe me?" Raina looked down. "I'd believe you meant it, but not that I'd do it." I stopped attaching timelines to people. "You're free to wait, or walk, but I'm not standing still." He was quiet. "I'm not punishing you," she added. "I'm protecting what I rebuilt without you." That night, she wrote in a journal for the first time in years. She didn't write about Jonah. She didn't write about Elia. She wrote about herself, who she used to be, who she might become. And for the first time, the I in her sentence didn't feel like a woman defined by what she'd survived. It felt like someone ready to live on her own terms. 3 months later, the city shimmered in fall. Raina walked through the open-air terrace of Velevent's new rooftop venue. The build-out was complete. String lights glowed overhead. Glass rails framed the skyline. And inside, crews set up for the venue's soft launch gala. It was her first public re-entry. The event was hers. The guest list was selective. No press, no announcement, no drama, only respect. Lucian found her inside the prep room, adjusting the cutlery on a linen table. "You okay?" Raina straightened a centerpiece. "Why wouldn't I be?" He smiled gently. "Because your ex-husband is walking in." She paused, then looked up. "As a guest?" Lucian nodded. "He RSVP'd through a vendor. I assume he wants to be seen supporting you." She didn't flinch. Then let him see what support looks like from a distance. Lucian raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yes. He started to leave, but Rayna stopped him. Lucian, he turned. Thank you for never asking for more than I offered. His voice softened. I knew you'd offer more when you were ready. Or never. And either way I'd respect it. Guests began arriving at 7. The lighting was warm. The rooftop hummed with conversation. Rayna stayed near the perimeter at first, observing, greeting, not hiding, just present. Jonah showed up with a simple button-down and no entourage, no cameras, no +1. He didn't try to own the space. He stayed on the sidelines, nodding to staff, shaking hands with vendors he once ignored. When he finally walked up to Rayna, she met him with a steady gaze. You look calm, he said. I am. Happy? Also that. Jonah looked around. You built something real. Rayna didn't blink. And I'll protect it the same way I'm learning to protect myself. He gave a quiet nod. I respect it. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. She simply answered, Thank you. As the night continued, Rayna took the mic. Her first public speech in over 2 years. She cleared her throat, then spoke with poise. This venue wasn't built for flash. It was built for meaning, for people who wanted to get married under a city that held their story. Tonight, we open that door. She paused. I'd like to thank the one person who helped bring this vision to life without ever once trying to own it. Lucian, you're the kind of man people should learn from. Applause followed. Lucian stayed seated. Jonah stood in the corner, his jaw tight. But he didn't interrupt. Later, when the crowd thinned and Rayna stood at the edge of the rooftop overlooking the city, Jonah approached her again. I came tonight to support you, he said. She nodded. You did, but I also came to ask something. Rayna turned. Jonah, just one question. She waited. If I ask for shared custody, without games, without lawyers, will you consider it? Her chest rose. You've shown up, she said. You've grown, and Elias smiles when she sees you now. So yes, we'll draw it up. Jonah looked relieved. But, she added, if you ever use her against me or forget what I've survived, I won't. Then the answer becomes no. Permanently. Jonah nodded. Understood. He held out his hand. Rayna didn't take it. She said instead, This isn't about us. It's about her. Keep showing up. That's how you stay in the picture. Inside, Lucian handed her a sparkling water. I saw the exchange. It was overdue. You handled it with quiet fire. Rayna raised her glass. To choosing what stays. And what doesn't. He clinked hers gently. To saying no, without guilt. Rayna returned home that night with her heels in one hand and her clutch in the other. Elia had already gone to sleep. The sitter left a soft note on the counter. She waited up for a story. I read 2. Hope tonight went well. Kira. Rayna smiled. She tiptoed into Elia's room, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. The little girl's hand clutched a paper flower Rayna had folded with her earlier that day. Crinkled, imperfect, but held tight. She kissed her daughter's forehead, then stood still, letting the silence wash over her. There was peace in this house now. No chaos, no doubt, only what she chose to let in. The next morning, Lucian sent a single text, brunch, no vendors, no plans, just peace. Rayna replied, meet me at the corner cafe at 10. When she walked in, Lucian was already seated with 2 mugs, waiting. You ordered for me. I guessed, he said. If I'm wrong, it's yours. She took the mug, sipped, smiled. You remembered? He nodded. For a while, they didn't talk. They didn't need to. When the waiter came for orders, Rayna raised an eyebrow at Lucian. He leaned in. I say pancakes. Big ones. She tilted her head. Then we split. You take the syrup. I take the fruit. Deal. They shared breakfast like people who knew how not to rush. I've been offered a permanent board seat, Rayna said between bites, on a company I once got pushed out of. Lucian looked at her, impressed. Are you accepting? She wiped her hands with a napkin. No. He blinked. No? I don't need it. I don't need to sit in a room full of men who once erased me, just to prove I belong. Lucian nodded slowly. I want to build my own boardroom, she added. One where women like me are already seated. And you will? Raina leaned back. I used to think closure came from being let back in. Now I know. It's from choosing to walk away. Lucian raised his mug in quiet salute. To your exit. Back at her home, she opened a drawer she hadn't touched in months. Inside was a slim black box. The engagement ring Jonah once gave her. It had weight, value, symbolism, but not meaning. Not anymore. She took it out, held it once, then put it in a small envelope labeled, Donate. No return. She taped it shut, then walked to the mailbox herself, dropped it in, and turned back home. That night, as Raina folded laundry in the living room, Elia padded in quietly. Mommy. Hey baby, you okay? Elia nodded, rubbing her eyes. Had a dream. About Daddy. Raina sat with her. Good dream? Yes. He was there. And he stayed. Raina pulled her in. He's trying, sweet girl. He's learning to be better. Are you mad at him still? Raina paused. No. I'm not mad. She kissed her daughter's cheek. I'm just choosing peace, so you can have more of it too. Elia yawned, snuggled in, and whispered, You're my home. That night, Raina sat in her kitchen with the last candle flickering. She didn't need noise, or more apologies, or grand makeups. She had her space, her daughter, and her boundaries. The doorbell rang. Lucian. He held a small brown box. What's this? She asked. An invitation. She opened it. A simple card. Build with me, at your pace. No timelines, no demands, just trust. She looked up. Lucian's voice stayed soft. You don't have to say anything now. Raina's fingers brushed the edge of the card. I already did, she said quietly, and then stepped aside, letting him in. Jonah Roke's life had slowed, not by choice, but by consequence. He now lived in a penthouse too big for silence. The sound of empty glasses clinking in the sink wasn't as loud as the absence of Raina's voice. The woman he traded everything for, Kaylin Dawn, gone. Gone after draining half of what Raina helped him build. Gone after using his name to front a scandal that sent Roke Systems spiraling into a forced merger. Gone without saying goodbye. Now, the headlines didn't call him visionary. They called him negligent. Disgraced. But none of it hit like the sound of Elia's voice on a recorded call, whispering, I miss Mummy more than I miss Daddy. He stood in front of a small studio. Serena's. Her name was on the door. Quiet, simple, etched in metal. Vel Strategies. Female-owned. Executive-led. Jonah hesitated, then walked in. The receptionist didn't flinch. She called back, Miss Vel. He's here. Serena appeared within seconds, hair tied back, no makeup, no smile, just steady eyes. Jonah, he didn't speak. She didn't offer a seat. You've been reaching out. I have, he said. I wanted to apologize. You did that already. Then I wanted to talk about Elia. Us. Anything you'll allow. She studied him, then stepped aside. 10 minutes. He sat across from her in a modest office. Nothing flashy. Everything efficient. Framed on the wall behind her desk wasn't a degree. It was a simple drawing Elia had made. Stick figures. One tall, one small, holding hands. Jonah stared. She gave that to me after her first school recital, Serena said softly. You were on a yacht that week. He swallowed. She remembers, she added. Every time you weren't there. Jonah nodded slowly. I deserve that. No. You deserved a chance to learn, but not at our expense. He leaned forward. I want to be present now. Serena didn't blink. And when the next distraction comes, when the next spotlight shines, I won't let it take me again. She looked at him. I don't need your words. I need your proof. He nodded. You'll see it, he said. No, she replied. Elijah will. Outside the studio, Jonah stood with his hands in his pockets, the winter air biting. He saw Raina step out of a parked car down the street. Lucian beside her. They were laughing. Raina's laugh. The one that used to only come out when Jonah had burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. Now it lived with someone else. She saw him. He didn't wave. She didn't flinch. She just nodded. Then turned toward Lucian, reached for his hand and walked forward. Barefoot no more. 3 weeks after that quiet hallway moment, the final paper dropped. The Roke name had officially been replaced. Roke Systems was now Vell Strategic Partners, powered by a female-led advisory board, rooted in sustainability and backed by tech ethics investors who believed in redemption, not Jonah's, Serena's. The media didn't see it coming, but those who'd watched her during the founding years knew. She was never just the woman beside the genius. She was the system. At the boardroom window of the newly renamed headquarters, Serena stood in a tailored black coat. Elijah, now 7, sat beside her, drawing. She was sketching a new version of the company's logo, a bird with wide wings. Why the bird? Raina asked. So it flies even when people try to cage it, Elijah whispered, tongue sticking out as she colored. Serena smiled gently. A quiet knock. Jonah stepped in. Slower now. Different. He held nothing in his hands. No briefcase. No files. Just a worn-out journal. Her journal. She blinked. I found it in one of the boxes, he said. From the old house. You never took it. I didn't need it, she replied. He held it out. I think you should read what you wrote back then. You wanted a company that valued people, that never bowed to greed, that raised children knowing the truth. She took the book but didn't look down. I don't need the past to define me, Jonah. I've already written my next chapter. He nodded. Then, quietly, can I be part of it? Elijah looked up. Mom? Serena knelt beside her. Sweetheart, she said. Do you want your dad around? Elijah shrugged. Only if he doesn't leave again. Serena looked at Jonah. That's your test. Later that night, in her small apartment, still modest, still clean, Serena lit one last candle. No gala, no announcement. She simply stepped onto the balcony, the same one where she once watched. Jonah Lee for a woman who said she could elevate his brand. Now, no one stood behind her. No one stood ahead of her. But downstairs, Elijah was sleeping. And across the city, a company stood that she rebuilt. Not out of revenge, but out of principle. The phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer. All transferred. You are the sole majority holder. She typed 3 words back. I accept. Quietly, and closed the balcony door. If you believe betrayal can break a person, but quiet strength can rebuild an empire, if you believe women don't need permission to rewrite their legacy, and if you believe a mother's dignity is worth more than anyone's apology, then like, share, and subscribe for more stories where justice isn't loud, but unforgettable. Thank you for watching Mr. Charles Stories. We don't chase revenge. We show what strength looks like, in silence.